Okay.
Well, we're beginning to start a long journey of 80 years. I'm Susie Belle Kinserlow. I was born to Robbie Loretta Galloway and Robert and Lester Earl Green in 1926 in Ballinger, Texas. I weighed 1 pound and 2 ounces. Both of my grandmothers made a shroud, but I fooled them. I didn't die. We lived at Ballinger until I was about 4. Then we moved to New Home, where my grandparents lived, and lived in a rent house of theirs. Then we moved to New Home, and Daddy worked as a suction hand at the gym. Robbie started to school while we were in New Home. Robbie, my oldest sister, is 3 years older, and so then we moved from New Home to Petty. It was a 2-room house with a porch, and the Depression was on at this time, and the government paid people to kill their cows and all, and so they did it at our place. The cows were supposed to be burned, but all of the women gathered there and cooked the meat in pots, in kettles out in the yard, and then canned them. From Petty, we moved to Happy, a school about 6 miles north, 6 miles west of Brownfield. Okay, west of Brownfield. We lived there until, it was a 2-room school, and we lived there until we moved to Seagraves.
You want some coffee?
Wesley, you're photographing me, and I'm not supposed to be talking about stuff like that.
It doesn't matter. We got 8 hours, Mama.
So give me coffee.
All right.
I was forced, I want you to know. Anyhow, we moved from Happy to Seagraves. Seagraves was a distance of 25 miles from Happy. We moved what furniture we had in a wagon. Robbie got to drive the wagon. Earl and I and Betty drove the cows, and we walked the distance of 25 miles to Seagraves. We lived in Seagraves and in Seagraves until my 7th grade year, and then we moved to Loop. We lived at Loop until the start of my junior year, and we moved to Littlefield at Spade Community and went to the Spade School. We were in Spade until I was in the last half of my senior year, and we moved back to Seagraves, and I graduated from Seagraves High School in 1944. Doyle Kane and I were the first to march in because we were the shortest and littlest ones in the class. After graduated from high school, I applied to enter nurses training at the hospital in Lubbock, but all classes were full until January, and I was the age I couldn't wait to start living, so I joined Western Union School to go to Springfield, Missouri to train to be a telegrapher. Up until then, all of telegraphers for Western Union was men, but they were all drafted, so they started training women. I was in Springfield, Missouri for 2 months, and that is where I met my husband, Ray Kinserlow, and in 1944. We were married September the 23rd, 1944. After 2 weeks of courtship, we were engaged 1 week of that. Apparently, we didn't believe in rushing things. Ray was transferred to Kansas to Fort Riley, Kansas, and I stayed at Houston, Missouri until he got settled in. I was pregnant with Ray Wesley Jr. at that time, and so then I moved to Fort Riley, Kansas, and worked for a Captain and Mac Bowles and his wife as more or less as a babysitter for their 5-year-old daughter, Dee Devin Diane Bowles. I stayed there until I had to come back to Texas and stay with my folks because my pregnancy was pretty well advanced. Ray Wesley Jr. was born August 10th, 1945. Ray got a emergency leave and got to come home, and just so he could make some money, so would have money to come back whenever Wesley got old enough. He worked out at Southwestern Public Service on helping build the plant. Wesley and I returned to Fort Riley, Kansas, and we had a 1-room apartment that cost $28. The refrigerator was an community ice box out in the hallway. It was a 2-story house, and each floor had 1 bathroom. Ray was discharged in November of 1945, and we went back to Houston, Missouri. Thank you for my coffee, Wesley.
You're welcome.
I don't think this is going to go so good, Wesley,
Why is that?
because there's pauses in it. So now, back to recording. We stayed at Houston, Missouri until I was pregnant with Ann, and my mother came down, and at that time all the furniture we had was a bed, a table, so a couple of chairs, and a kerosene portable cook stove. We sold all of that and came to Texas. All we had we could get in a trunk, and Daddy paid the freight on it, which I think was $12. We stayed with my mother and Dad till Ray could get a job with Southwestern Public Service, and we moved to Denver City in one of the government trailer complexes, as there was a housing shortage in Denver City during the war. there until Ann was born, and she was born February the 13th, 1947. And then after she was born, we moved back to Seagraves and rented a house and lived there for the rest until 1991. Both Ann and Wesley graduated from the Seagraves High Schools. Wesley served in the U.S. Navy, and Ann, at that time, married Jolynn Moore. She and Jolynn were divorced twice, and she met her husband, Mike Ort, in California, and they married and have been married for how many years, Wesley?
At least 30 or 40, I don't know.
I think she was 21, so.
Yes, it'd be 40 years.
I think they've been married about 39 years, but don't hold my memory to it.
Okay.
Anyhow, Mike and Ann had Christopher Michael, and Catherine Suzanne. And I think I'm about wore out, Wesley. I'll have to do some more thinking.
All right. We'll shut it off.
So now,
All right. You'd have to.
we moved from Seagraves to Lubbock in 1991. What I said was I walked into Seagraves, but I was riding out. We have since resided in Lubbock, and for the last 16 years. My husband Ray passed away 3 years ago. Since then, I've had a few health problems. I hurt my back, been sleeping in a recliner for 8 months. Because they gave me Coumadin to thin my blood, my hair's falling out. I got gout, and outside of that, I'll tell you, I'm healthy. I used to enjoy visiting my grandparents, Annabelle Baker and Thomas Roscoe Ganaway, both of whom were born in Arkansas. Grandpa used to tell when he was 13, he was riding through the woods and came up on some men hanging a horse thief. They told him just to ride on and forget what he saw. Anyhow, I loved going over and spending time at their place. Grandma could set the best table, and we're talking during the Depression. Several kind of jellies, butters, hot biscuits. Anyhow, you ate well over at Grandma's. Then my other grandparents were Susan, Melinda White, and Henry Anderson Green, and they were married in McLennan County. On Grandma and Grandpa Ganaway, Grandpa and Grandma both had been married before. Grandpa had a child with the first wife, but his sister kept it and it died. Altogether, I think that Grandma and Grandpa Ganaway had about 10 children, and also Grandpa and Grandma Green. But this was normal for that day and time. Wesley was in the Navy, as was Michael John Ort, my son-in-law. He was in the what?
Seabees.
He was in the Seabees during the Vietnam War. Ray, my husband, was in World War II, 37th Division, 129th Infantry. He carried a VAR rifle. And apparently he was in the Pacific, and apparently conditions were really bad. I can't think of anything else right now, Wesley.
Nothing?
Nothing. Nothing comes to mind.
Well, what about people like Henrietta Green? Kenneth Titt, your various relatives that you've gotten to know over the years through your genealogy work. This is primarily for your genealogy work, so I should think that you might have something to say about that.
Not right now, Wesley. I'm tired.
All right.